welcome to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast put on by the Lincoln County News, where we sit down with members of the community and go over the last week's news. And in this case, in this edition, we're going to go over 2 weeks worth of news.
We have headlines for you from November 28th and December 5th because we did not record the day after Thanksgiving. We were enjoying our lives, which I'm also doing right now.
Beautiful. We've also forgotten to introduce ourselves. My name is Jonathan. I'm Jonathan Riley. I'm a reporter here at the Lincoln County News. Cover a few different towns, and yeah.
What towns, Jonathan?
Oh, it's a secret. You guys gotta. Our audience has to listen and then read my articles, figure out which ones. Because right now I feel like I cover a lot of towns, so we all cover a lot of towns right now.
Jonathan covers like 7 at the moment, and I'm covering Waldoboro, Jefferson, and Somerville. And my name's Molly Rains, and I'm also a reporter. Nice.
Yeah. So let's jump into November 28th. Big doings on this one, huh, Molly? The schooner landing fire, which many of you may remember, burned down on September 1st, was recently ruled as an accidental thing by the state fire marshal's office. So that was cool for the community to learn about, and they've started moving some of that debris.
When you say that was cool, you've been involved in this, and I know people have been giving you, around every corner, people are like, Jonathan, here's what I think happened.
Yes.
So for you, is there a feeling of closure with the accidental ruling?
No, not really, because people are still I don't know. It happened at 3 a.m. So the thing is that every narrative fits, any story people come up with. So it is cool to see stuff moving along.
Totally.
Also, Newcastle residents were envisioning alternative traffic flow options at a Village Partnership Initiative workshop on November 19th. There are a couple intersections in town that have been identified as possibly problematic. And that's at the intersection of Mills Road and Academy Hill and Main Street. For those of our listeners who have not driven in that area, it's a little funky. And so they're trying to figure out and imagine different versions of that. And also another, where River Road meets Main Street in Newcastle. That's another place where they're thinking of ideas. So it was a very cool workshop. And if you haven't given your input and you're a Newcastle resident, make sure to go over to the town's website.
Definitely. We also had a bit of a dramatic morning when the Main Health Lincoln Hospital campuses were locked down from some phone threats, or so it was believed. Yeah, so there was one threat was deemed not a threat by the Damascotta Police Department after an investigation from Chief Jason Morlick. It seems that there was a voicemail left at the Miles campus, and it could be heard that there was someone playing video games. So what seemed like a threat was, quickly dispersed as not one. However, that was not the case for a day later at the St. Andrews campus, where there was a threat made, and which led to the arrest of an individual in Booth Bay Harbor. On November 19th, in that case.
That's right.
And you got to interview Dick Marchi.
Yeah, Mr. Markey. Yeah, he is a fabulous educator and what would that be? An educative administrator?
A leader
in education in Midcoast, Maine for 30 years, and he still is. And I got to sit down with him for our Characters of the County column, which for those of you who don't know what that is when we get an opportunity to sit down with people from Lincoln County and learn a little bit more about their lives and how they fit into the tapestry of our community. So Mr. Markey was the principal of Great Salt Bay Community School in Damascotta for 29 years, almost 30.
Wow.
So
was your principal?
Yeah, he was my principal. He stopped... He retired when I was in the 6th grade, not when he was in the 6th grade. When I was in the 6th grade, he retired, and I was on his last student council. And I remember him encouraging me to not be intimidated by the older kids. Oh. So I started running for class president because of him.
Wow, he made you who you are.
Yes, I owe a lot of things to Mr. Markey. So that was in that week's edition.
Wow. And then also in that edition of the paper, we had the holiday shopping guide come out.
Yeah.
And I had fun for that. I got to look back through the archives and pull some recipes from old cookies. And there's some crazy things that our paper used to publish. And
What do you mean? What were we publishing?
We published, some of the good things we published were like during World War II. Here's how to make cookies if you don't have any good things in your house. And they'll come out okay.
How do you make good cookies if you don't have anything?
You put orange rind in them or like other creative things to make them taste good. And I tried it in our house and it made the whole house smell like oranges. And they weren't like, I wouldn't choose them. But if it was a ration situation, it would be acceptable to me.
So the way that we're describing this makes it sound like that there was like take cups of dirt from the parking lot.
Yeah.
Like that's with orange rinds though, so it smells nice.
It's like granola bar adjacent.
Oh.
Like cookie's a strong word. But then as I was looking for the recipes, I also saw that we used to publish these little like 1-paragraph articles about random topics, like how to hunt sharks and and how octopuses are really smart. So
well, those things are still true.
They still are, yeah, but evidently not newsworthy anymore. And you can go to, I think it's lcnme.com/archive.
If you're a subscriber and you can have access to the last 170 years of information and things that we've published. And, so that's really cool. Some recipes. And so for those who are curious about sharks.
Or anything else.
Or anything.
Absolutely anything else.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, we had a great shopping guide that we put together. Many features about local businesses from Waldoboro to all over the county. So that was a great thing to see in that edition. And yeah. Oh,
and I want to give one shout out to Luis Cordero from Madomic Valley High School, who's going to Jazz All-State. And he was also on the front page.
Oh, right.
He's a 17-year-old trumpet player, and he is very skilled, according to their band teacher, at all kinds of trumpet playing. And he was wonderful to speak with, and I'm excited for him.
Isn't he the first person from Madomic Valley High School to be sent to All-State Jazz Band?
Mm-hmm, which is a huge accomplishment. It's like high school musicians from all over the state. Mm-hmm. And he was really excited to play with a band at that level. I'm sure he'll be really good. It's in January he's going to perform, but they haven't set a time yet. So we'll keep you updated.
When they set a time, we'll let everyone know so we can go support them.
Yes.
That's really cool. And now for the December 5th edition. Twin Village voters will consider amendments to 2 interlocal agreements concerning the harbor ordinance and the shellfish ordinance. After that joint town meeting with Damariscotta in Newcastle at Great Salt Bay Community School in Damariscotta, the towns will go into separate rooms to vote on their own special town-specific articles. So that we'll be looking forward to hearing about how those turn out in next week's edition.
Mm-hmm. The meeting is on Tuesday, December 10th.
That is right, at 6:30. Also in Damariscotta, a memory care facility received approval to start building on Piper Mill Road. For those of us who are familiar with the area, that is just off of School Street at the intersection of School Street and High Street. It's right down where it's the Great Salt Bay Sanitary District. So right down that road, they're going to start building a 49,000 square foot single story memory care facility. Clipper Ship Landing had originally submitted plans about a year prior, that were approved for an assisted living facility that was a bit larger and had a second story, but has since changed direction because it will be more cost effective to run it as a memory care facility. And that has to do with staff training and so on. So we'll be looking forward to hearing about when that project is going to break ground, but we're told from town planner Michael Martone that it won't start before the spring.
Did they say anything about like if it would be for local people or for people moving in or?
Yeah, they didn't really get into what the clientele would be. I can tell that they were saying that they can tell there's a lot of need for this, and whether it's here or in around. So it sounds like we could build 3 of them in town, and they would be filled up pretty quickly. So I know that they described their goals aesthetically is to make it feel residential because people will be living there. So one of the planning board's concerns was that it would look like a Home Depot, with the light, the really like sterile light, really bright. You can see it from miles away. So that's not the aesthetic they're going for, low light residential. Nice. So we're hoping to see something that will just kind of integrate into the landscape of Damariscotta.
That probably feels better too if you're a patient. To not feel like you're living in a Home Depot.
Totally. Who doesn't want to live in a Home Depot? All the supplies for home are right there.
Good point, yeah.
And then down in Bristol, down the peninsula, Santa Claus took a little break from flying his sleigh around with the reindeer. Oh, actually, I guess Santa didn't take a break, but the reindeer did. And Santa arrived by helicopter to Pembroke Point Lighthouse down in Bristol, which is a tradition that, while it hasn't always been in Bristol, it did start nearly 100 years ago in 1929. So Santa's been dropped off by air all over the place. And this, whether by reindeer or by helicopter. Wow. But it was really cool to see the families of Lincoln County and beyond come down and hang out with Santa for a little bit. So
totally. And it's a nonprofit that gets them up in the air.
Yes, it is a nonprofit. Friends of Flying Santa.
I would love to be a friend of
I tried to interact and get a candy cane, but
you're too old.
I am too old, but great fun for all. And you, Molly, you had some stuff going on in Jefferson.
Yes, I went inland and I talked to Sarah Merrill, who is raising some really cool, really beautiful, and very special ducks called German pekins, which her grandmother imported 25 years ago. And she's super passionate about breeding these animals and keeping their lineage alive because they're very rare. And it was really cool to meet them. She has 8, and I think that's the largest number in possibly New England as far as she knows, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, the birds they have a very strong personality. They're very friendly and sweet, which is something that I've interviewed a few folks who raise like heritage breed livestock, which are breeds that aren't necessarily used for factory farming. And they've kind of become less popular because maybe they aren't a good meat bird or other animals aren't as big. But everybody who raises them says that they have really good personalities. And that was really evident. The ducks were so cute and they were really friendly.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yes. And then I also went to Wiscasset, where voters approved the allocation of funds for the first phase of a wastewater treatment plant relocation, because their current one is in a floodplain, and that is not where you want a wastewater treatment plant to be.
Huh.
Yeah.
You don't say.
The risk of flood is getting worse with each year, and the federal funding you can get if you are trying to renovate a building that's like directly in the line of where a flood will come if we have a severe storm or something like that is pretty limited. So they want to move it to Hodge Street, which is where the town garage is right now.
Oh, yeah.
A bit uphill. And it'll be a long project. It's going to take 5 to 6 years, according to town manager Donis Simmons.
Well, cool. We'll look forward to following along with those developments.
Yes.
Also, locals in Lincoln County observed the Maine State Police. The Maine State Police tactical team was present last week, and now we know why. There was an MDEA investigation that resulted in the arrest of 5 people. 3 New York men and 2 Chesterville residents have been arrested after a several months long investigation.
And in Lincoln County, this was happening in Waldboro, but outside it was also happening in Chesterville and Windsor, the same execution of search warrants. And they ended up seizing 72 grams of fentanyl, 15 grams of cocaine-based 2 loaded handguns, suspected drug proceeds, and a vehicle that was actually wanted in New York in relation to a separate investigation about a shooting.
You know, I'm kind of feeling like we buried the lead on what we shared first with you guys today on the podcast. But yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, totally.
And this week's character was Alna Fire Chief Mike Trask, who's been the fire chief for about 30 years. Sherwood Olin, our associate editor here at the Lincoln County News, conducted the interview.
Can we talk about that? You went to Monhegan Island because Jonathan, in addition to all the other towns he covers, is our Monhegan reporter right now. And he went to Monhegan and talked to some folks who have a coffee shop.
Yeah, they first were the owners and still are the owners of Monhegan Coffee, which is a keep wanting to call it a rotisserie, a roaster, the coffee bean roaster. And they, in 2023, the summer of 2023, opened the Boring Chain, which is their cafe now. And it's been going well. We caught up with Mott and Carly, and they have a fantastic product. If y'all are a fan of espresso, cortados, and any espresso derivatives, they have them, and they execute really beautifully. So as a coffee drinker, I was really excited to interview them. Drank some coffee, got really jazzed up, and it was really a treat. So this was something that we did over the summer. In August, I think I interviewed with them. And we, this is one of those pieces that we like to call here in the newsroom an evergreen piece. So it can kind of go, at any real time. And so we ended up putting it in this week's edition, and it was really cool to see that, end up in print. So totally. Mott and Carly, if you're listening, thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to make the journey out there. I get seasick really easily. So I'm going to show up there, a little green in the gills, looking for a cortado to settle my stomach.
I feel like it is nice to know that you can get out there and still have really good coffee.
That's huge. It's amazing. Monhegan doesn't even feel like a secret at this point, but if you don't know about it, you should know about it. Get out there. Like crazy, right?
And who are you?
Yeah, who are you? Come on, get out there. Anyway, so that's what happened this week. That's what happened in the last couple of weeks here at the Lincoln County News in Lincoln County. Mm-hmm. This is a special edition. Reminder, we don't normally only do 2 weeks at a time. Mm-hmm. We're aiming to do, a 1 week recap per episode. So this was a special edition where we got to do a couple of weeks in one episode, and that was because of the holidays. So I imagine with the holidays coming up, we may find ourselves in another situation like this. So
a couple more.
Yeah. So just letting you know, listeners, as we you tag along for the ride.
Thank you for tagging along. And we would love to hear from you. If you've got news going on, you can always give us an email or reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that email you should reach out to is info@lcnme.com, or give us a call. I've never called the news, so I don't know off the top of my head what our phone number is.
563-3171. We're joined today by Jess Townsend, the Executive Director of Midcoast Humane. She's been with them since August of 2021, and the organization is our local shelter here in Lincoln County and beyond. We had an article in this past edition about a town hall that Midcoast Humane held at the YMCA to discuss their Edgecombe facility. But before we get into all that, Jess, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what Midcoast Humane does.
Absolutely. So we do a whole bunch of things. We are an adoption facility. We take in unwanted animals from owners. We take in stray pets. We take in pets that are being housed for law enforcement cases of varying kinds, both locally and for our state animal welfare agency. We have a public assistance program that helps folks with medical costs, as well as a spay-neuter voucher program.
And one of the adopted dogs from Midcoast Humane is also in the studio with us today. We have Hedgehog, our LCN office dog.
And isn't it Hedgehog's birthday today?
It is. It's Hedgehog's 18th birthday. So we're very grateful to you guys here in the office.
Well, and she's a great alumna to have out in the world because she is little and cute, but she is also elderly and definitely deserving of a good, soft place to land.
Definitely, yeah. That's what they said. And I was like, yeah, I'm coming to get her. So the town hall, obviously Midcoast Humane does a lot. It's not just adoptions and pets. It's also the food pantry for pet feed and everything that you just described. And for Lincoln County residents, the local place to do that is in Edgecombe at your property there. But the town hall, at the town hall, you kind of shared that the state of that facility is not doing so well. Could you get into that a little bit? And I guess my question for you is, why did you have the town hall now?
Absolutely. Putting together the history of the organization in Lincoln County has been a fun treasure hunt for me because figuring out the why of the sequencing of things is difficult in retrospect. That facility was closed to the public in 2018, well prior to my landing. And it depends on whom you ask as to the why of that. The reason that it has not been reopened is the safety of the property. So it was built as a residence in 1987, gifted to the then Booth Bay Region Humane Society, and kennels were built on the side. We are hard on facilities. Mm-hmm. We use the best chemicals that money can buy. We have varying sizes of dogs, from hedgehog's size all the way up to, I have a 140-pound Great Dane right now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. He's almost as tall as I am, which is interesting.
How big's your facility? Is that a stable? Like, where do you keep him?
He actually has a room.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. We call them living rooms, and he has his own living room.
Wow.
So we are very difficult on spaces. We're hard on it, and residential construction is just simply not designed for what we do. Mm-hmm. And that facility is coming apart at the seams. And when you think of the parts that were constructed for us, the kennels, for example, concrete does not last forever, especially if it's not well maintained. So the other fun aspect of it is, like any industry, our technology has changed. How we house and shelter animals has changed, just like pretty much everything since 1987 has changed. And the design of those kennels is not particularly safe for the public. For example, there are trench drains that run across the front of the kennels. Mm-hmm. It's just asking for somebody to break an ankle.
Yeah.
So when you kind of combine all of that, the reason I did not reopen it when I got here was I don't think it's safe to have people walk through. Mm-hmm. Chain link is not the safest. So we are open by appointment only, but that isn't, by and large, what people want from a shelter. They want to be able to walk in, see all of the animals, as opposed to, I'm going to make an appointment to see Fluffy. Mm-hmm. Mm. So part of the reason for doing this now is, A, it's not getting any better. Mm-hmm. The facility is not getting into better condition the longer we wait. But also, it took until now to be squared away with the building project from Brunswick, which was begun during COVID, and we moved in June 2022. And I don't know if anybody has told you this secret to commercial construction or not, but you will spend the first year chasing bugs. Every single system.
Yeah. What does that mean? Chasing bugs? Like real bugs?
Oh, no, metaphorical bugs.
Oh, metaphorical bugs. Okay.
Yep. The HVAC will do this. The heating will do that. This will break, that will, all that. And that building is, I affectionately call it a Franken building because it is a retrofitted building that has old parts and new parts. And synergizing old parts and new parts is difficult. Mm. Mm-hmm. So that's squared away, but also financially, it is a big undertaking. It was a big thing for the organization to take on, and you then have to continue to maintain that level. So, fun fact, it is much less expensive to run a falling apart building like our old one in Brunswick or Edgecombe than it is to fund a fully functional, up-to-date building.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing that came out at the town hall that people may not necessarily have been aware of was that the Brunswick, people in Lincoln County who maybe didn't go to Brunswick before the new building was built, that building was, as you said, in very poor condition. And you were saying that it needed the renovation more. So is that why that project happened first?
Yeah, so the old building down on Range Road in Brunswick was built, the original part, in 1950. That was also a bit of a Franken building. As you walked through it, you could see different eras of construction, but it was 30 years older.
Yeah.
And also, again, just not safe. And it wasn't safe for staff either. So when you look at kind of the hierarchy of needs, you go with what's in the worst condition worst condition first. And it also houses more animals. So when you kind of look at what do you need to do, I assume that's why they chose to start there. It does not mean that this doesn't need doing as well, because it really does.
Definitely. I think at the town hall you shared some interesting ways that animal shelters can exist within their community, in addition to sheltering animals and the things that we see you all doing now, serving as like community hubs. And I think you used the term third space, which is an area for folks to come outside of work or home and just be themselves and maybe spend time with cats and dogs and animals. Would you like to see something like that here in Lincoln County?
Absolutely. I think it was the New York Times that did an article on the shuttering of third spaces kind of countrywide. And a lot of that happened during COVID for obvious reasons, but a lot of places didn't reopen. And when you think about, especially children, needing socialization outside of their home and outside of a school setting, and for adults, it's work home, as you said, those third spaces for kids are some of the most enriching places that they get to go. And a fully functioning, properly built animal shelter that accounts for kids can be an incredibly enriching third space for them. You can do school field trips, you can do service days, and you can do full-blown summer camps. And there are definitely benefits to having a shelter that can do those, but you have to build for it ahead of time and account for it.
And you guys have some requirements that you're looking for if you were to rebuild. Is that correct?
Well, we have I use a car analogy. You can have a Pinto, you can have a Camry, or you can have a Cadillac. And in that scenario, we already have the Pinto, and she's sort of on her way to the junkyard. The Camry version of this is you have an adoption facility and an admission space where the animal control officers can drop off, people can bring their pets, and the animals get adopted out. If you look at what is the biggest scope that we could have, you have all of that, plus you have a humane education classroom and program that accounts for that piece of your community, and you have a low-income, low-cost clinic that helps account for folks who need pet care but are not able to afford it.
And we have, I think, a lot of feral cats in Lincoln County that could benefit from low-cost spay-neuter right now, too, right?
Yes, you do, which is a very interesting facet of COVID that I think a lot of the country is seeing in areas that were formerly thought to be sort of squared away on population. We discovered we're not. You're only a year, 1 or 2 bad years away from a re-explosion.
Re-explosion of the cat population.
Yeah, so Maine holds a really interesting place in the animal welfare landscape. We, up until COVID, were in a position where a lot of our animals came from out of state. Mainers are extraordinary at making sure their pets are well cared for, spayed and neutered. And we also have the kind of weather that really helps. So, for example, breeding season stops. Mother Nature's really smart. She makes sure babies are not born into a Maine winter they can't survive. So our breeding season is short, or was pre-climate change, wherever you land on that, as opposed to somewhere like Texas. Think South Texas. Their breeding season goes all year round. So a place like Maine, it's really kind of been the poster child for here's how you spay neuter us and the rest of New England. But during COVID, enough veterinarians retired and enough people didn't alter their animals. So fun fact, one female cat can have up to 36 kittens in a year.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So think about that. Yeah. And every one of those kittens will be sexually mature within 6 months and can start having babies. Yeah. So when you look at that and you look at access to care as an issue, which it is because we have it for humans in a lot of parts of Maine as well, and you have access to care issues for getting to veterinarians, and then the veterinarians retire. And then they're too booked to see you, and you're however far out. And then their costs have gone up because the cost of everything has gone up. Now you can't afford to spay and neuter your pet. Now we have too many cats.
Yeah, we hear about it, pretty frequently at select board meetings. They're like, oh, Officer Allen's coming around again to get the feral cats. And I think he brings them to you all, to Edgecombe in many cases. So.
The really hard part about that is that I just have the one veterinarian.
Yeah.
And no matter what I do, she just refuses to grow extra arms for me. So there's only so many animals she can alter. Plus, she has our whole population under her care. Every Tuesday, we have an operations meeting and we go through. We have a whole section that is just about managing cat colonies. And we had 3 in Wiscasset this past year. One of them had over 70 cats.
Wow.
We have one in Somerville. I mean, they're all over the place. So what we have is a kind of a countywide difficulty, but what we don't have is a countywide solution. I have the knowledge and the wherewithal to figure it out, but I don't have the funding or the hands. So when you put all that together, ultimately, it would be better that these cats simply not get born in the first place, as opposed to needing to come into the shelter, not properly socialized and not vaccinated.
Yeah.
There are diseases now endemic in some of our communities that are very easily preventable with vaccines.
Definitely. So if you were able to expand the Edgecombe shelter and offer veterinary services there, you're saying there would be a measurable benefit to Lincoln County in the cat populations alone and things that we're
Correct.
seeing there. Yeah.
Well, and also when you look at what is our county demographic, we have a lot of folks who are retired, senior citizens, people living on fixed incomes who could really benefit from lower cost veterinary care. I talked to somebody a couple of days ago who only has Social Security. That is all she lives on. And it comes out to less than $900 a month. And she just has her cat. She lives in a single wide trailer, no family, no kids, one neighbor over a mile away. But she really wants her cat.
Of course. Yeah.
So, of course, we're going to spay her cat for free, but there isn't anybody helping subsidize that. So there's a niche that we can hold, but we do badly need community support to hold it.
Absolutely. So in terms of next steps right now, are you looking for property? Are you thinking about a capital campaign?
Yes, because I needed one more challenge. Yes, so we're kind of doing 2 different tracks. First track is we need more local support for our shelter, just period, separate from a capital campaign. The Edgecombe facility costs about $500,000 a year to keep open. It brings in, operating fund-wise and from donors that feed into that campus, less than $400,000. So the other part of our organization, which is the towns that feed into Brunswick, we're all one organization, but really, right now, that area is subsidizing this one. So we're looking at how do we build a support base here back up. Concurrently, we need to be looking for property and how would we fund rebuilding this facility to continue to do this work and expand it.
Yeah. And I think there was some misunderstandings during the town hall about where donations go. So I want to make sure people understand that when you send in money, if you're going to make a donation to Midcoast Humane, that percentage breakdown does not reflect. Like if you live here in Lincoln County and you send in a donation, it's not that it only goes to Brunswick. It goes to the whole organization.
Exactly. So when the organizations merged, we became one single company. So for example, there's just one executive director instead of 2. For economies of scale, it was very efficient. You don't need to reinvent the same template in multiple places. And we move supplies and people and resources back and forth as locations need. We move food. We move, I just found in our sheltering database, I'm sorry, I'm a data nerd, a report that tells me animals that go campus to campus. So that's super fun. Fun facts, I think it was good, solid 80% of our small animals get adopted out of Edgecombe because of our partnership with Louis Dose.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
So smalls frequently come this way. So 208 animals went from Brunswick to Edgecombe last year. 400 plus went from Edgecombe to Brunswick. So we operate as one organization and move the animals and resources as their best needs dictate.
Absolutely. So I know that lots of people want to help out and they don't really know what to do for next steps. So how can our community members, if they're really excited about Midcoast Humane and they want to help you, what are you looking for?
We are looking for property that we don't have to pay a whole lot for, which that ship has sailed on a lot of levels. But we would also really love to be on town sewer. We put a lot of chemicals and, quite frankly, a lot of dog poo particles down our plumbing on a daily basis. And we are not the best candidates for drain fields. That's one of the fun difficulties at Edgecombe right now. So there's that. We are looking for folks who are interested in town and community infrastructure and planning who want to help us with this project, and just plainly and simply financial support.
I have a quick question. It's going to kind of throw us back a little bit, a few steps. I know what a beehive looks like. I don't know what a colony of cats looks like, right?
Okay.
So I can imagine that infrastructure. So is a colony of cats just like living in a tree somewhere? Like, what does it mean when we have 3 colonies of cats in Lincoln County? Like, what does that mean?
Cats tend to live in loosely related groups when they are just reproducing freely. So when I say we have a colony, usually a colony has somehow a source of food and a source of shelter. There's a reason that those cats are in that spot. So when you have a colony, there's frequently a caregiver. Some of these colonies are boiling out from somebody's home. So there's that. But there's also areas that they're not owned and we can't target a caregiver, but they're of a healthy weight, which means they're finding food somewhere. So it basically just means a murder of crows. It's a colony of cats.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah. And right now we have anywhere from 20 cats to 100 cats at multiple sites. And the kicker with handling those is if they are not particularly well socialized, you have to trap. And the resources to do that are very difficult to come by. Trapping is actually a bit of an art. And our local groups that do TNR, which is trap, neuter, return, which is on the theory of if there's resources there, more cats are going to come. So you keep altered cats in there holding that spot. The folks that do that regularly are completely underwater and can't help us anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a big problem. And when I look at grant funding, how do I get a position for that funded? That still just gets me one person.
Right.
So I can hire somebody and teach them to trap and be the guru of that, but it's a large problem that one person can't solve.
We're going up against hundreds of cats, so
well, and it's just a really easy area to hide, especially for folks who are battling overpopulation in their own home. Mainers mind their business, for the most part, so it's very easy to have the community at large not be aware that there's an issue until it starts to boil over and literally grow legs and go down the road. And when I look at Lincoln County and the pockets of cats, I don't know how nerdy you guys want to get with this, but the state of Maine has a coalition of animal shelters. We're called Maine Humane. And we are doing something called cat stats, where we're putting in our data to track where all these pockets of cats are across the state to start figuring out how do we allocate resources as a state coalition of shelters to address this so that no one area is really in difficulty that nobody else is pitching in for. So we have folks all the way from the county on down who are putting their data in, and it's fascinating to look at the map.
Yeah, that's exciting. I want to see it.
Well, it looks very heavy in the Midcoast area because, again, data nerd, I have a staff member putting all of this in for me because I was like, if there's going to be resources, I want them allocated here. But it's been a very interesting experience, and I think we need to talk about it before it becomes each municipality trying to solve it on their own, because it's not going to work.
Yeah, it sounds like too big of a challenge, but that's really exciting. Let's talk about the
that.
So when you look at what the options are, the really hard part is that if we close this facility, that's a whole county with no services.
And that's a possibility, right? I mean, I think I was at the county commissioners meeting the other day, and Chief Deputy Randmaker was there. He was talking about the article, and he was saying, well, we need a shelter here. But I think maybe the realization that people need to have is it's possible that we go down a route where we don't end up with a shelter at all.
Well, and the feedback that people say that they give me is, well, why aren't the towns, why aren't the municipalities, why isn't the county funding this? And what we charge is a per capita rate. So, for example, Damariscotta pays more than Alna because they have more people than Alna. But that combined for Lincoln County specifically only comes out to, for all those towns, $67,000 a year. Mm-hmm. That does not fund us in the way that we're discussing.
Yeah, when you said it was $500,000 that you need per year for Edgecombe.
Correct, yes. And that's before we actually have a decent facility.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you look at a nonprofit serving a municipal purpose, it gets really murky as to who is financially responsible for what. And it's a hard topic, but for us, the issue is we need to be able to fundraise sufficiently in this area to support the services for it. And Deputy Maker is correct. We do need one here because if we were not here, envision the entirety of the county having nobody to take those animals unless they come all the way down to Brunswick. Mm-hmm. And with the number of animals that come into this campus, Brunswick can't actually absorb that number. It would put us well beyond capacity. And our neighboring shelters, the next closest one up north is Augusta, which is Kennebec Valley. And then east is Pope Memorial in Thomaston. And if you want to go even a little bit farther up the coast, Paws Camden, none of them have the ability to take on Lincoln County's animals. Mm-hmm. They have all, in the last 6 to 8 months, closed admission for being full. I believe Camden, last I heard, was closed right now for cats. Mm-hmm. So this is a local issue that needs a local solution.
Definitely. And I suppose the fundraising is one step of that, but also people knowing that Edgecombe's not closed and interacting with you more, which is a closed loop, because as you were saying, it won't be until you have a better facility that people can come in and see what you're doing actively, without an appointment.
Well, and I think there's enough people that have vision that if we can explain what we can do, if they're willing to help, that they will help with that. So we're at the planning stage. There's not a whole lot of people who get wicked excited about planning, except nerds like me, who are really excited about that. But there are some people that does resonate for. So people who want to help us through that stage, and people who have skills to offer. There's plenty of folks out there that have construction or septic or architecture skills that would be of benefit at this stage, or municipal connections, ideas of people to talk to, et cetera, that would be very, very helpful. Once we get through that and can actually get what feels like a working possibility for a plan, then you just go on the road and fundraise the heck out of it and see what the community is willing to do. The problem is you can do that and still not succeed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in that case, we'll have either just an adoption and surrender center or something with fewer services, or people will be traveling either to Brunswick if they're in the southern part of the county, or to somewhere else, I guess. Mm-hmm. Or, there's an unknown there as well.
Exactly. And the absolute bare minimum that we could possibly do is simply a drop-off facility, and everybody has to get funneled down. Mm-hmm. But that still would require staffing, and it still requires building, because we cannot continue to do it where we are.
Yeah. So if people are interested and they want to help, how would you advise them to get in contact with you all?
Email is the easiest way. Mine is right on the website, as is my phone number for folks who would rather not computer. And almost everything that we do is available to folks on our website as well.
And what is the website?
It is midcoasthumane.org.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Jess. We really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having me.
On next week's edition, we'll be learning the results of the special town meetings in Newcastle and Damariscotta.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be hearing from Piper Pavlich, another LCN reporter, about a new fire chief for Noblesboro.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. Production support is provided by Tyler Davis of Tyality Productions. Theme music by Stu Mahan and Sherwood Olin.
Have a question or a suggestion? Email us at info@lcnme.com. And if you haven't already, please be sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen.
This has been a Lincoln County Publishing Company production.